Good afternoon, friends. Today we will discuss a very important judgment and, in fact, an interesting one in the case of Eicher Motors. The judgment was delivered by the High Court of Madras, and the judgment relates to the interest payment on late filing of the return. Now, why I am saying that the judgment is an interesting one, because there were prior to this judgment there were certain few of the judgments which were against, and this Madras High Court has overruled those judgment of the another High Court and delivered a judgment favorable to the assessee. Now, as per the facts of the case, the company, as you know, the Eicher Motor, that is engaged in manufacture of the motor vehicle, right? And by way of the transition from excise to the GST, as you are aware that the Senvet credit, which was available to the assessees, was allowed to be transitioned to the GST regime by filing a Tran 1 form. And we have also seen in the past that there were many technical glitches in case of many assessees, wherein the assessees were unable to file the Tran 1 within the prescribed timeline, and hence that transition of Senvet credit, which was running into a few crores or hundreds of crores for the big assessees, by the department to the GST regime. So likewise, the petitioner here also faced the same technical glitches and was unable to transition the Senvet credit amounting to rupees 33 crores to their GST Senvet credit, GST electronic credit ledger, right? Then what happened that due to this, the assessee has continued the deposition of tax into their electronic cash ledger as and when the payment was due, and since the tax was not transitioned from Senvet credit to the GST ledgers, the assessee didn't file the returns. So as and when subsequently after 6, 7 months or 8 months, the technical glitch was resolved and the amount was transitioned from excise to the GST regime, the Senvet credit one. The assessee filed the GSTR 3B returns late, and hence the proceedings were initiated against the assessee to demand interest, alleging that since the tax payment has been made late because of filing the GSTR 3B late after the due date, which is the 20th of the next month, the assessee is liable to pay the interest. Now, the assessee again filed the reply before the jurisdiction authorities and has also then approached the appellate authority, and both of them have given a findings that in fact yes, the assessee is liable to pay the interest for late filing of return. Now, before I come to the discussion part of the judgment, which has been given by a single learned bench of the judgment, there were in the past the High Court of Jharkhand. They have given two judgments, which, in the case of reflex, and one more judgment, wherein they have said that if the judgment, if the interest or the return has been filed late, then the interest would be payable, because the tax in the electronic cash ledger takes the form of tax only and only when the GSTR 3B is filed, meaning thereby prior to filing the return in form GSTR 3B, whatever money the assessee deposited with the government in the electronic cash ledger by filing the form PMT 06, that constitute or that keep on lying in that account as a deposit with the government. However, if we see that there are no fetters on the government to use that account, to use the money which is lying in the electronic cash ledger, I'm meaning thereby the government is very much at a liberty to use the money which is lying in electronic cash ledger, even if the corresponding GSTR 3B return has not been filed, right? Now, in this background, let us now proceed further. How the Madras High Court discussed various provisions of the CGST Act and how it reached at a conclusion, giving the judgment in the favor of assessee. Now, first of all, the High Court of Madras, they discuss the section 39, Section 39, as you are aware, that it governs the provisions relating to filing of return in form GSTR 3B. The High Court of Madras take a very important notice of the statutory provision under Section 39, which provides that the GSTR 3B is a return to file or for filing the details of the tax paid. The court gives a very specific emphasis on two words, which is tax paid, and as per the court, the meaning of these words will be that the tax has to be paid before filing of GSTR 3B. Means the due date of GSTR 3B, as you are aware, it is the 20th of the next financial, the next month, right? So the court said that the tax has to be paid by before the filing of GSTR 3B, and details thereof has to be filed in GSTR 3B. Now, noting that the court also interpreted two more statutory provisions under the CGST Act. One is Section 49, which governs the provisions relating to payment of tax, and another is Section 50, which governs the provisions relating to payment of interest for late payment of tax. Now, having ascertained or having analyzed the Section 39 regarding the filing of return and interpreted in a way that the tax thereof, which has to be depicted in GSTR 3B, have to be filed up to the date of return. The court noted that it hardly matters whether the return has been filed or not, but the tax has to be paid before the due date of filing the GSTR 3B return. Listeners, mind it is a very important conclusion, and the entire judgment is lying or moving around surrounding this one conclusion. Now, the court then advert its attention to Section 49 of the CGST Act, which provides for the payment of tax. Now, Section 49(2) of the CGST Act provides that a person would pay an amount to the credit of government in the electronic cash ledger. The respondent thereof argued that here the word used is amount, and it will take form of the tax only when GSTR 3B is paid. The High Court then adverted to Section 50 of the CGST Act, which governs the payment of interest in various cases. And as you are aware that since it is already 5 or 6 years down the line, there are many kinds of refunds which are available to the assessee, and one of them is the cash ledger refund. The court noticed that when a person files a cash ledger refund and it is not paid within the prescribed time period, then the government is obliged to pay the interest along with the refund. The interest has to be paid at the rate of 6%. The High Court questioned the respondent that when if an argument that it is still a deposit and it has not been credited to the government exchequer is upheld, then why the government is paying an interest of 6%? And viewers, since the interest will be paid by a person only when they have utilized a certain amount at the expense of somebody else. So in this case also, since the amount in cash ledger is lying at the disposal of the government, so the government is paying the interest for non-payment of refund within a prescribed time period. So having said that, and on the conjoint reading of Section 39, Section 49, and Section 50, the court held that the only and only meaning of these three provisions, combined reading of three provisions, comes to be that if an assessee paid an amount in the cash ledger before the due date of filing the return, which is the 20th of the next month, then it will be treated that the person has paid the tax to the government exchequer, and to the extent of amount which is there lying in credit of electronic cash ledger, there will be no interest liability on that person, even if the GST 3B is filed late. Now, you may ask that, and it is important, in fact, to discuss the provisions or the scenario which was prevailing before the introduction of GST. Not even before the introduction of GST, but long back under the excise laws, there was a concept of PLA, the public ledger account. Now, what has happened for payment of any excise liability? The users or the taxpayers were expected or were allowed to first credit the amount in the PLA, and then that amount in PLA used in the excise return for payment of tax. Now, in the similar scenario, in the similar case, in one of the case, the Supreme Court held that since the PLA is nothing but the amount lying with the government, any amount which is standing in the PLA to the credit of a person will be treated as tax paid, and there will be no interest payment to the extent of amount which is standing in the PLA. So while delivering this judgment, the single bench of Madras High Court has overruled the divisional bench judgments in two cases of the Jharkhand High Court. And friends, this is a very important judgment which I think would be of use in many of the cases. And since now there are conflicting views from two different high courts, it is expected that the matter will now be finally discussed, or will be finally petitioned before the Supreme Court for final decision. So thank you. I assume that you will find the session very informative. Thank you.